Good evening, all of you. It's a great pleasure to host a webinar on nurturing academic innovation in New World in association with TurboStart and Ken 42. This is one of the new initiative of academic institution and industry experts to host a joint webinar. The context of this webinar is that we are undergoing or seeing an unprecedented economic crisis, a lot of job losses. So this is a time where to nurture entrepreneurship among the young men and women. So a lot of initiatives happening both from academia and from industry. So a lot of students are out of college now. They're at home and not knowing what to do. So this could be a very good with an insight about pursue the journey of entrepreneurship. So we are very fortunate to collaborate with the TurboStart. The program schedule is like this. We are starting with welcome address by Ullas Kamath, Joint MD of Jyoti Laboratories. I request you to welcome and make an opening remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Achar. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. AIC NITTE Incubation Center is doing a wonderful job, and TurboStart and Ken 42 have joined together for this fantastic topic called nurturing academic innovation in a new world. The timing is perfect because we see today's students, they are our future. And in India, generally when we are studying, we don't give much importance other than for examinations and the marks and thereafter finding a job. But at this point in time, most of the students are at home and most of them are attending online classes, and they will be thinking that what do we do? What do we do? And that restlessness is what is actually creates like interest in them to go for innovation. So the topic has been fantastic, and I've been attending every day at least 2-3 webinars. But this topic is really unusual, and it's the first of its kind I'm seeing in India. So it's a fantastic job, Dr. Achar. And we do have a fantastic panel for you to take you through this new nurturing academic innovation in New World. Ganesh Raju, a good friend of mine, comes with tons of experience from the industry. He was a former partner of PwC. In the last 1 year, he's the founder and the CEO of both TurboStart and Ken 42. Very dynamic, very enterprising person. You will, when you hear him, you'll know about it. And his interest is in absolutely in innovation. He has started his new TurboStart venture as a complete ecosystem for the startups to nurture the talent in reality. With him, we have Dr. Mansingh, Vivek Mansingh. He's a general partner with YourNest Venture Capital. Again, coming with a huge experience, and they have seen the world. For the kids to understand what is West and what is East, they are the best people to explain to you so that you can plan your future accordingly. Then we have Venkat Raju. He's a mentor in residence for TurboStart. When you hear him, you can hear him for the whole day. The kind of experience he brings to the table is amazing. I've heard him many times when he mentors the startups will not sleep thereafter. That's the kind of abundant energy he brings to people. And we have G.S. Krishnan, Principal Advisor for TurboStart. Again, a very important person for us at TurboStart, helping the young entrepreneurs to pursue their and also bringing the entire ecosystem together. So this is a panel which is going to help you. How do you pursue your innovation? And this entire 1 hour, make the best use of it. I see in the participant, a lot of professors are there, a lot of academicians are there, and also some students I'm seeing, some startups I'm seeing. And after this 1 hour program, you can always get in touch with Mr. Achar and also Mr. Ganesh Raju for any further details you need, any further help you need. Not end this program with this just panel discussion, but we are here to help you out in case if you have some great ideas. can always reach out to Dr. Achar. In turn, I will put you through TurboStand. With that, I welcome you all once again, and I'm extremely happy to be a part of this program, and welcome all of you, sir. Ganesh Raju, Vivek Mansingh, Venkat Raju, and GS. Now over to Dr. Achar, please.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ullas Kamath is instrumental in organizing this special event. So thank you for that. Thank you for your welcome address also. A brief introduction about NITTE and Adult Incubation Center. NITTE is the second largest education group in the region. We are offering around 127 courses to 15,000 students in 3 campuses, NITTE, Mangaluru, and Bengaluru. So one of the key mission on which NITTE is working is convert student into entrepreneurs. And we have a goal of converting around 20% of our outgoing students as entrepreneurs. In this contest, we are happy to get sanction from Atal Incubation Center from Niti Aayog, and we are operational from June 1st. And basically, we are mandated for 3 core functions. One is spreading the education of entrepreneurship. Second is onboarding startup and mentor them to go to the next level. Third is helping MSME sector in the region. So we are actually working in all these 3 areas. And the big challenge for all of us is to motivate our students to take up entrepreneurship as a career. If you look at the history of entrepreneurship in India, I think around 17th, 18th century, before that, India was best known for entrepreneurship, and Indian entrepreneurs are best known in the world, and we had a highest share in the global trade. But when British came to India, when they're ruling for 200 years, they systematically destroyed two things in India. One is entrepreneurship, spirit among the people. Second is the local Panchayat Raj. When Nehru became a prime minister, understanding that our education system doesn't support entrepreneurship, he invited David McLennan from Harvard to conduct a study on why there is no motivation from students to become an entrepreneur. He did a famous experiment in Kakinada, in Andhra Pradesh now. Earlier it was in Karnataka, now it is in Andhra Pradesh. He came to know that the research study shows that main reason is our education system is make students to become dependent. They don't have independent thinking at all. They have no motivation to become entrepreneur. So he prepared a comprehensive plan and gave it to Indian government to implement it. So promote entrepreneurship in India. Unfortunately, when comprehensive plan was ready and Nehru left the world, and when Shastri came into power as a prime minister, he was having that big problem of Jai Jawan and Jai Kisan kind of a program. He has no time to look at it. And then Indira Gandhi came to power as a prime minister, the entire rest of this period was Garibi Hatao kind of a thing, and nobody bothered about spreading education of entrepreneurship. But when the UPA 1, UPA 2, a lot of attempt has been made to promote entrepreneurship in the schools and colleges. A lot of incubation centers were started. But real momentum started when the new government came into power. I think in 2016, there are only 140 incubation center in India, whereas the number was 2,400 in China and 1,400 in US. It was very less. Right now, the number is around 300. Earlier, all incubation centers were in the colleges, institute, but today, a lot of corporates also starting incubation center, mostly funded by government and some of the NGOs. So the new generation of incubation centers coming up is Atal Incubation Center. They have a mission to set up 100 world-class incubation center in India. 60 is already started, and one is NITTE. We are very proud to be part of this mission of innovation and entrepreneurship. Now there is an urgency. Even the government also thinking that to give license for the higher education institution like Engineering and Management Institute, and they must convert outgoing student as an entrepreneur. If you don't now the ranking is done in the B school is what is the average salary of the students. I think next is ranking should happen on how many of the students become entrepreneurs. To become an entrepreneur, I think we need to do a lot of innovation. India was also best known for innovation, but in the last 200 years, I think we are not seeing any breakthrough innovation. There could be a lot of socio-economic factors, but it's the right time for us to stand up and look at the various issues and start innovation, especially the young students who are studying in the schools and colleges. There is a myth that to become an entrepreneur, you need to have a lot of money. Second is you need to have a family background. And third is you need to have education. All these three is proved that you need not have all these things. Only thing to required to become an entrepreneur is you must have a burning desire. Once you have a burning desire, and all support will available to us, and we can become an entrepreneur. So, once Prime Minister of addressing the nation, he was telling that India has a millions of problems, but also we have millions of bright minds. So, how do you motivate these bright minds to solve these millions of problems? So, in that context, I think we are hosting this webinar. We are fortunate to get excellent speakers from industry, even though the topic is nurturing academic innovation. All speakers are from industry. Another problem in India is that the collaboration between industry and academia, each one blaming each other. That industry says not much is done to impart relevant practical knowledge. Academicians say people from industry are so busy they don't come to us whenever they invited them. So there's a need for working in collaboration with industry and academia. So this TurboStart, they are very passionate about promoting innovation and entrepreneurship among the students, and they're in the process of creating a world-class ecosystem for developing startup in India. So we have decided to work together. This session, the TurboStart is started by an industrialist especially, and Federal Incubation Center from academic institution. And if we work together, I think we can make an impact in the promotion of entrepreneurship in India. So in January, we are all talking about India becoming $5 trillion economy. So to become a $5 trillion economy, I think we need to develop more entrepreneurs. So then only is possible. So in that context, we are starting this discussion now. Now the time for panelists for the discussion. My first question to Ganesh Raj is, how important is student entrepreneurship in India in the present context?
Thank you, Dr. Achar. Thank you, Ullah sir. Thank you, Dr. Mansingh, Venkat, and Krishnan. So I think you emphasized very clearly why entrepreneurship is very important in India, right? We don't have to repeat it. I think all of us know why it is important. If you look at, we are the third largest education system in the world after China, US, and India, right? But in terms of the innovation, if you look at it, we really, really lag. And I wouldn't blame necessarily the universities or, for that matter, the students, but I think it's the whole ecosystem that we have in place. So I think, as you rightly said, I just want to draw a parallel. I think I have very eminent colleagues of us who will be able to emphasize what needs to be done. But just if you say why we are not there where we have to be, is if you simply look at it, even after experience, after they have graduated and experienced startups, struggle to succeed in this environment. And that's precisely why we had actually started this TurboStart. So we have ensured that we have more industrialists as part of our ecosystem than just money, because we know just investment is not going to help startups. Now, when the startups itself have this trouble, you can imagine how the situation is with the students. Students are willing, but I don't think so. We have the right, say, the ecosystem to support them. Now, one of the things that when we go across colleges and speak to them, there are only that many jobs that are available, right? Obviously, everyone will not get a job. As rightly said, we have to create more entrepreneurs. Now, because of that, there is a problem with the admissions into the engineering colleges as well. So I think needless to mention, for our whole ecosystem to thrive, we have to focus on entrepreneurship. And particularly if you're aiming at 5 trillion, which itself is not a very big dream compared to what China has achieved. It's not a big dream, but I'm with you. If you're not doing well in entrepreneurship, and I think somewhere even a ranking system should reflect this, as you said, not on the basis of how much one gets paid, but how much in terms of how many students actually become entrepreneurs and what kind of job creation they do. That will in turn trigger this revolution, if I can say. The other thing is we lacked, of course, infrastructure in the past, but with the government support, we are seeing like the way that you have set up, it's going to improve. But all in all, I don't want to re-emphasize why we need entrepreneurs. I've left my job after many years in PwC precisely for that reason, that we need more job creators than being in a job and be safe about it. So I don't want to re-emphasize, but I will let others comment on that as well.
Thank you very much, sir. That there are three routes of entrepreneurship in India. One is unemployment, frustration, and then get into entrepreneurship. Second is education, employment, and then come to entrepreneurship. Third is directly education to entrepreneurship. I'm happy that took a second route of education, employment, and then entrepreneurship. Not only you being an entrepreneur.
So sorry to interrupt you. Let me comment. When I was growing up, when I was joining college, I didn't hear about this entrepreneurship. I thought it's all for people who have got a lot of money, right? I never even thought that as an option, nor anyone told me that's an option. So I think we didn't have that kind of culture, nor the facility that students are exposed to today. So I'm glad what I did now, but of course, we just didn't even occur to us that we can actually start a business, apart from perhaps being a farmer in OT.
All three routes are good. If somebody from education to entrepreneurship is also good. From education to employment, entrepreneurship is also good. Education, unemployment, entrepreneurship is bad. So we need to get into other two routes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We have around 150 participants registered. When this program is also live in YouTube. So a lot of students and faculty members are viewing in the YouTube. So my second question is to Vivek Mansingh. What are the challenges that academic incubators face in promoting entrepreneurship? Now around 300 incubators all over India from the academic institution, research institute, and less from industry. And the success rate is only 7%. The kind of money spent on this kind of education, entrepreneurship, and promoting startup, the study shows that only 7 out of 100 people trained, only 7 become successful. We call it the infant mortality. Within 2 years time, only the startup disappear. They don't continue. So two issues. One is that what are the challenges that academic institutions face in motivating students to take up entrepreneurship as a journey, career path. And second is why is that there's an infant mortality among startups. I request Vivek Mansingh to throw a light on this.
Yes, excellent question. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for inviting me. Thanks, Ganesh. Let me step back and then come back and answer your questions within a couple of minutes. Right? If you look at academic innovation worldwide, is it possible? Absolutely, yes. You look at Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Michael Dell, all academic innovation. Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard, Steve Jobs, Stanford, and Michael Dell was at University of Austin when he started Dell. So they have been very successful companies. All companies are more than $100 billion companies today. And if you look at just the last generation, you see Yahoo started from Stanford, Facebook started from Harvard, Google started from Stanford. And there are many more whose name we do not know, so I'm not taking their name. So is academic innovation possible? Absolutely, yes. Now, what can we learn from these? I'll make 5 points on what is needed to actually create, partially answering your question and answer the rest later. Number one, these are maybe college dropouts, but these are very bright people. Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard, not from any average school, and Steve Jobs, Stanford. So these are very bright kids. So the first thing is we need bright students, which we have. We have many bright students. And what you need is with these bright students should have innovative minds. Can you pull me in the main screen, please? Whoever is managing this.
You are, sir. You are on the main screen.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted students to see me.
No, you are visible.
Thank you, Ganesh. So what you need is number one, bright students, which we have. But these students have to be a bit differently trained, which is what the schools are trying to do. They have to have innovative minds. They have to have can-do attitude, and they have to learn. They have to be phenomenal learner, and they have to have ability to persevere. Entrepreneurship is not easy. Number two, what we need is good universities. So all the examples that I gave you came from Stanford, Harvard, University of Austin, and things like that. Where do we have schools like that? Well, we have some, but a lot more are in the pipeline. And I encourage our universities to actually follow this path, learn from them, and try to become one of these type of class universities. What differentiates them most? Forget about India. Even if you say Stanford and University of Santa Clara, which is just 10 miles away, what differentiates them is, number one, at Stanford, you will find top researchers. These professors will be absolute top researchers in the world in their field, not in University of Santa Clara. Or they are heavily engaged with industry. Stanford professors have that. Santa Clara University standards, professors don't have it. So if you look at even within the Silicon Valley, has Santa Clara University been able to create academic innovation? The answer is no. They are just 10 miles apart, but they have not been able to create. So my request to universities is to actually pay attention to Stanfords and Harvards and Whartons and other top schools and start learning from them. You are not going to become in one step Stanford, but at least move in that direction. Make sure your professors are engaged with the business and industry. Without that, it doesn't happen. Make sure your professors are doing top tier research. Without that, students can only not pick up some of these nuances of the technology. Number three is mentors. Mentors who have been there, done that. We talked about Venkat Raju and other type of people. It is very important to have these mentors. One of the things that differentiates Silicon Valley with many, many other parts of US and the world is because the high quality mentors are available. And these mentors are people who have been there, done that. They are not just very bright people of IIT, IIMs and so on. They have been there, done that. They know what it is to have entrepreneurship. So mentoring is very important part. The fourth part that is needed is the funds. And now you see that funds and positive environment this is being provided by institution like TurboStart. So TurboStart is helping them with funding, the right environment, even mentorship to certain extent. So these are all very good development. Now the fifth thing I have for both the universities that are running these incubation programs and for potential entrepreneurs is that pay attention to the companies that these guys have started from university. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Michael Dell, Yahoo, Facebook, Google, right? What are these? These are absolutely new areas. These are new companies coming out of nowhere. These are the kind of companies that can be started from an academic institution. If you think some chip company can be started from there, or an ERP company can be started from a university academic program, it's not going to happen. Why? Because you need 15, 20 years of experience to actually understand what is there, what is the state of the art, and then what kind of company you can create. So if these 5 things we pay attention to, and you have already highlighted why India needs entrepreneurs, we have actually no option. I will even be stronger in that approach. We have to create entrepreneurships. We have to create entrepreneurs, but isn't going to happen. Dr. Char, you mentioned the average record of these incubation programs is pathetic. These are the 5 things if we do, we can actually create world-class incubation programs at universities or at industry. And I have no doubt in future, we'll see many, many successful companies from some of these programs.
Thank you very much, sir. The startups come from either from innovation or from imitation. I think Flipkart is an example of imitation, even Ola also imitation. I think both are fine. The next question to my panelist, Venkat Raju, is what are the current challenges in getting idea to the market? The new generation, especially the millennials, they have a lot of ideas. They have excellent PPTs. They show, a lot of people show me the PPT also, the excellent ideas, but problem is how to go to market,
Sure.
how to convert an idea into a commercial viable project.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Achar, and rest of the panel. Glad to be here. There are multiple challenges of taking any idea to market, and this is not just at the student level, but even companies struggle with turning their new ideas into market products, etc. But in this context, let me highlight few of the issues. First, let's get a premise that not all ideas are not necessarily good. Second is, not all folks with ideas are cut out to be entrepreneurs. Where I'm coming from is we need to have some kind of a qualification, selection, filtering process in terms of do these ideas merit further maturation to turning them into a market or not? Or these set of people are the right people to become entrepreneurs? Dr. Achar, you did talk about one key trait, burning desire. If you have that desire, you'll be successful. I completely agree with you. Equally important is some cultural aspect. Having spent time in Silicon Valley, I have observed at close quarters very successful entrepreneurs and what it takes. And it has to do with something in the American culture too. You know, when they are born, that culture encourages the question of why, as a young child, and question authority, challenge conventional wisdom. So that is something that is very, very important in my mind. And pretty soon the why should become a why not. This goes into the imagination. Don't accept things how they are. Why can't it be? This imagination is a prerequisite for you to have an idea which can be turned into a market opportunity. And these are cultural traits, and is something that incubation centers and others should be encouraging, questioning, as well as identifying who among the students are the subset of them who are likely to be successful entrepreneurs and help them accordingly. Fundamentally, I put it an idea through what I call as the DFV filter: desirability, feasibility, and viability. Desirability is all about, is this idea that I have, is it desirable? Assuming I'm successful in turning this idea into a market, into a product and a solution, is the problem statement I'm solving is big enough, the market opportunity is big enough, and so should I proceed? That's first question. Assuming you get past that, then the question is on feasibility. Okay, great idea, but is this something within my purview, within my resources, my network, my capabilities? Can I turn this into something feasible? Is it feasible for me to do that? And the third part is, but you can defer that to a later stage, is viability. Assuming it's desirable, assuming it's feasible, can I turn this into a viable business, a viable, validated market opportunity where my unit economics and everything and how the competition is stacked up against me, that can I sustain this into a successful business? So these are the filters one has to put an idea through to turn that into a real opportunity into the market. And quite often I see somebody with the idea, they jump at it and saying, okay, but it didn't take off. But there are so many reasons associated why some ideas turn into very, very successful products and successful businesses and others don't. And lastly, as an incubation program inside an academic incubator, we need a structured program to transform these ideas through a disciplined process. It's not just content and curriculum. It is also about validation in the market, whether you're taking it into a prototype, doing some, taking it to forward to a MVP, get some outside experts to come critique and turn this into a viable business model. So there are a lot of things to be done, but these are the current challenges as to why most ideas don't take off, and some do not deserve to be taken off, others do, and they would need the help. And people like you should be able to make the difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving insight on this topic. The next question to is Dr. Sri Krishnan. Are academic institutions doing enough to present entrepreneurship as an option to our students? Because most of the higher education institutions, maybe in engineering or management, then a rat race to place student in the companies. If you look at their website or the promotional materials, they mention how many companies are coming, what is the average salary. The entire focus is on the rat race to place students. But what can academic institution do to provide entrepreneurship as a viable option? It is more charming career option to the students. What are the interventions as an academic institution we can do? Can you highlight on this, sir?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Achar, and appreciate an opportunity to speak today to the students here. First and foremost, I think one point which you started initially also about industry academia collaboration in your opening address, that is one of the key challenges, number one, which one needs to look at and address. And coming from my own background of biotech, it is critically important that the academia should probably be looking more at innovation, entrepreneurship to the students more than just looking at placements for them. The challenge today, as you precisely mentioned, most of the colleges and institution wants to see how many students they placed. This is what they look at as from a ranking point of view. And I'm very happy that the government of India going forward is going to emphasize more on the how much of entrepreneurs you're going to create. So the challenge which I have personally experienced in most of these cases has been that while they have the so-called entrepreneurship encouragement, the real need for supporting the students from a mentorship, from a challenge related to the funding, from a challenge related to look at step by step in different stages, what do they need to support the student? These are all lacking. Very few institutions actually go into the detail. And from the beginning, they get into an academia collaboration, the industry collaboration. What happens, the industry at least looks at certain areas where they feel is the challenge, and we want that innovation in that area to be focused on. And this encourages some of the students to come out with certain ideas. So there is a collaborative effort. The second part of it, most of the time, the reason the academia goes through the challenges predominantly choosing the right topic. Today's innovation is critically important to look at areas where it is challenges today. I know that people will immediately look at addressing the COVID and looking at vaccine. Those are all not something one can address overnight, but there are other things which related to COVID, one can look at it. So this way, if you look at specific topics, I would say, for example, the challenges related to environment. Environmental challenges today are phenomenal. If you look at the municipal solid waste, which are all going through heaps, piles, which nobody is able to address, which are today a big challenge in most of the cities, whether students could look at that. Look at the renewable energy part. Can we use these municipal solid waste into better renewable energy, an area one can address? No doubt everybody is doing, but today, how many are successful? This is where the industry academia collaboration will make a big difference. I think the way to go about, I would recommend from an institution point of view, like your institution is, invite the academia, go through ideation process, let the students themselves come out with various topics and make the industry decide what are all the areas which one should address. So that is one part. The second part of it is, today, most of the time, what we have seen, at least some of the sort of competition, which I have been part of the panel, the students come out with very, very innovative ideas. And all these things are forgotten, or it is just simply thrown out after the student complete their course. Where is the continuity? So this is another thing which institutions should understand. The importance of gaining reputation for an organization is to say that our students have come out with this particular innovation, which is a commercial reality. So that is what is very, very critical. So I would recommend that your institution should invite more academia related to every segment, let it be automobile or let it be IT or let it be biotechnology. And this is where I think TurboStart will make a big difference for you. This is where we are looking at connecting the right industry with the academia in such a manner. There is more encouragement for students. There is definitely name for the institution. Increasingly, entrepreneurial mind is what is going to make the students successful. It is not the job opportunities. Job opportunities are only going to diminish. It's going to be startups. It is going to be innovation, which is going to create more jobs. And this is where we all need to pay attention. And I would be very, very happy personally also for your institution in any way to support the students in mentoring or choosing the right topics for their own innovation, and even connecting some of the industry with your academic institution. What I would like to say.
Thank you very much for your concern for academics and students to convert them in an entrepreneur. And NITTE will also planning for a PGDM in innovation and entrepreneurship, completely focusing on making them an entrepreneur. We need your support also. My next question to Ganesh Rajan is, now those who born after 2000 are entering into job market now. They're completing degree. They're called new millennials. So most of them got a bug of entrepreneurship. So what is the trend according to either we are seeing more number of students coming as an entrepreneur, or again they're job seekers? What is your experience in this?
So there are two aspects to this, right? So one is, as I told you earlier, there is generally a limitation in the number of jobs that are available in the market today. So obviously, people have to look for other revenues. That is one which is forced upon the students. At the same time, if you look at the number of startups that are flourishing, and if you see the kind of funding and the valuation and the value add that they generally give to the country today, there are a lot of entrepreneurs which are reported, right? Which students also want to follow. So from one perspective, they're forced because there are not enough jobs. The second aspect is, of course, there are enough poster boys for them to follow. So generally, there's a tendency for the students to follow more than what it was. I wouldn't say it's on a big scale. It's just starting. But nevertheless, at least even a small percentage, if they follow the route, I think it will add immense value. So that is one part. Second thing is, like the way you have done, just about in every academic institution, they are setting up this really wonderful facilities for encouraging students to innovate, right? Now, the only problem that I have there is that based on the experience, again, I'm not specifically pointing out a particular institution, but while the facility itself has come up, and partly because of government support, I don't think the top management or the leadership in all these educational institutions really support the idea of pushing this. So when there is infrastructure is there, I don't think so. And again, congratulations. Happy to know that you are starting a program specifically on entrepreneurship. But generally, the facility is there. But in terms of culture, in terms of the support of the leadership, to what extent, I generally think based on the interaction that we have with the industry, generally in the higher education, there's a lack of support in that sense. So that's the second aspect. Now, if you look from the corporate side, though large corporates interview students in the traditional format and look at students who are better in terms of the academic alone, now we have greatly seen some of the technology companies actually use, say, coding, for instance, to see whether these students are actually problem solvers or generally just want to get just a job. So even if you don't want to take the path of entrepreneurship, even if you just want to say, just become an employee, it's not going to be the same. Obviously, it has to be beyond just being an employee. Therefore, entrepreneurship, even with large organizations, is very critical. So even the corporates are looking at that very, very closely. So as far as students, they realize this, right? And obviously, when the students that don't get the job, they obviously know why it is. So the industry also is seeking more problem solvers. In other words, more micro entrepreneurs within the large organization, and not necessarily just hire people just to do what they ask them to do. So that's a very important one. Now, the other aspect which we have also lately seen is, traditionally, again, if you look at it, most of the entrepreneurs Like in the US, Dr. Vivek Mansingh took the name of Harvard, Stanford, MIT, the usual suspects. And when you come to India, you have the equivalents of the IITs, IIT Bombay, Chennai, whatnot. But we're also seeing a lot of innovation coming out of Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. So even some of the innovation that at least what we have funded, we have very specifically taken a call saying that there is a general belief that if you're an IIT or similar institution, the team is supposedly good and you can back them. But we have taken slightly different approach. That's one of the aspects, but we tend to support students even from other cities. And we can very clearly see from your region. For instance, last year we received quite a number of applications. So that's a trend, even Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. Usually, culturally, if you look at it, be more happy just getting a job and moving to cities, but that also is changing in a big way. Now with COVID, there are two things that have happened, right? One, people are maybe happy living in their own small towns and villages where it is very nice to stay given all the environmental issues. But the situation also given a lot of opportunities in terms of coming out with fantastic solutions. Now, any crisis will typically lead to a lot of innovation. I think it's the right time for students to do this. In fact, seeing the trend from Ken 42 and TurboStart, we have just launched a national level innovation challenge, and we very specifically didn't restrict it to technical students, technology students. We have just opened it for everyone. Anyone with any idea can apply. And one of the things that there is some prize money and investment, but more so, the idea is to get mentorship from people like what we have in the panel today, esteemed guests that we have in the panel today. And likewise, we have many more people. The idea is to see how we can support educational institutions. But we are seeing equally the trend from the universities and the students to come up with this. And the last thing I would say, which government, again, they're late to wake up, but now suddenly with COVID and the added angle of, say, the intrusion from China and whatnot, there is also this national pride of being self-reliant. And I think that passion, I mean, when you read paper, you also get that, though I may not be personally capable to invent anything in the science and technology domain, but at least we feel like helping students who do that. So generally, I think some are force-fitted and some are emerging out of the situation that we are in. We are seeing very, very positive ecosystem that's developing as far as student entrepreneurship is concerned.
Thank you very much, sir. My last question to any panel member can answer. So academic institutions are interested to develop an ecosystem to convert a student into an entrepreneur. But by and large, we are not able to do this. So what kind of qualities, infrastructure needed for an academic institution to develop innovation and entrepreneurship among the students? Any one of you can answer.
Yeah, I answered it, I think. I told the institution has to make sure that their professors are engaged with industry or they are top researchers in their field, right? I was on the board of NIT for 5 years, and I'll tell you the faculty shortage in India is so serious that even the top institutions have 50% faculty of what they need. So these are not healthy environments. So then finally you hire whoever an institution can get. Those problems are not going to help. So from infrastructure, like Ganesh said, infrastructure is available now. You have created through government help or from institutions help, wonderful infrastructure that is there. Faculty, you have to help with. Mentors, like I said, are very important. You need to get engaged with institution like TurboStart, where you can have access to top mentors. I think that will help. Also realize that every student cannot be converted into an entrepreneur. I already went over what skills and qualities an entrepreneur should have. That is very, very important. And if you put all this together, there is no secret recipe here. I see no reason. Like Ganesh mentioned, I have seen some startups coming from second tier town, from colleges that are very modest in terms of ranking, but brilliant students and doing brilliant work. I have seen some top tier institution doing very average work and very average startups. So we have to provide equal opportunity across the board, and I'm sure we'll find enough gems.
I would like to add a couple of things to what Vivek just said. One is, in most incubation programs I've seen, it seems like an afterthought and something that students attempt to do in the final semester. incubation by its very definition, for you to mature an idea into something that is like really viable for the market, it takes at least a good 18 to 24 months. So think through at least a track in your program where some students can progress at least over a 2-year period, for example. So that's one change I would like to call out. Second, do think about investing in and or licensing these so-called digital platforms. There are so many out there that is supporting open innovation, collaboration, things of that nature. I've seen most incubator programs in academic institutions, nothing but a glorified real estate, some room, perhaps a couple of machines here and there, but think through the needed infrastructure in terms of a digital platform, as well as depending on the kind of college you are, investing in the appropriate labs, if you're an IoT lab or a robotics and so on and so forth. So investing in such resources to turn an idea into a prototype and or validate a prototype into a product and so on and so forth. Because once you have such a facility and a digital infrastructure, it is easier to connect with external mentors, industry, subject matter experts, and so on and so forth. And I would strongly encourage institutions to be investing in such infrastructure and capabilities.
Thank you very much, sir. Let us
Just
take some
to
questions
add
in the
to what,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
just to add to what Venkat said, I think it is critically important, even for example, setting up the right laboratory facilities. This is where institutions can play an important role along with academia jointly if we can get the support from the industry. That's where you will be able to at least invest in the right infrastructure. That's very, very critical. We have seen some of the institutions call it innovation and they don't have even the basic facilities. This is where all the money which you get, which should be put to better use so that the students get more encouraged.
Thank you, sir. Let us
Dr.
take some.
I don't have any specific thing to add, but I would like Mr. Ullas Kamath to share his
Yeah.
experience as well. I mean, he has seen it all. So
Yeah, even though, yes, sir. Even though he worked for industry, he worked as an entrepreneur, called entrepreneur. So converted a small lab into a world-class FMCG. So I think he can briefly share his experience of converting an academic institution into innovation center and then promote entrepreneurship.
Yeah. I think everything, like it's well said. I think each one of them have expressed what he's doing at NITTE, the incubation center. But I'm more on practical side. In addition to what they have said, you're in Mangalore. You must have tasted Hangyo ice cream, Dr.
Yes.
And you must have tasted Ideal ice cream, right? And
Yes.
those two ice creams are the biggest in South India. They operate part of Karnataka, not even full Karnataka. I think Ideal ice cream operates in about 6 districts and Hangyo maybe entire Karnataka. Put together, they are together when next to MNC, at least 10 times bigger. That's the size. They are entrepreneurs and they are doing extremely well. They are the highest taxpayers also. My question always comes when I meet them, why you restrict yourself only for Karnataka? And one of the tests globally done on ice cream, Ideal ice cream's vanilla blind test became the second in the world in the blind test. When you put the Ideal as a brand, then they think, oh, it's a brand. But question is that people like NITTE, you should call them and you should make them to talk to your students, saying that how did you build this Ideal ice cream? How did you build this Hangyo ice cream? And motivate them to go at least regional, then national. Because if the ice cream can be sold worth 300 crore in 7 districts in Karnataka, my question is, can't it go national? Why can't it go international? Natural ice cream, which is out of Mumbai, but extremely doing well around the country, one of the highest tax-paying companies. But again, they are restricted themselves in Mumbai, in Bangalore, and in like in Mangalore. That's it. So somewhere that their entrepreneurship has to go beyond them, and they need to be taken to a corporate level. So it is because they create huge jobs. Ideal and Hangyo together, they have job of about 800 people. So it can be 8,000 people. So at NITTE, what you should do is, there are many companies out of South Canada doing extremely, but they are happy the way how they are doing and they don't want to grow. Help them to grow. Because they are entrepreneurs, you can make bigger entrepreneurs, and we'll come and we'll explain to them what opportunities are there for them to take regional or national. You don't have to always look for, like while to see for new young generation entrepreneurs, but you don't have to only restrict yourself to that. At the end of the day, we want job creators and existing good, successful entrepreneurs. If they can go beyond their comfort zone, I think that's also a good idea. And there are many companies I can explain to you personally, but especially this Ideal and Hangyo ice creams, both I feel that be a national brand. If it is means you are making a 3,000 crore brand among them, that itself is a big achievement. What we think we can do in the 4 years. But they need to be brought in there, and they need to be motivated to go beyond their comfort zone.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. We are also looking for a clinic in NITTE where entrepreneurs can come and share their problems, and experts like you can help them to follow it.
No, they will tell their problems. Your students will find a solution.
Okay. Student also can solve the problem.
There's a research project, and
Yes,
when they get a solution, we'll ask them to execute it also. Then they become.
yes, sir. Student board.
Yep.
The forum is open for questions from the participants. So anybody can ask question to the panel members. Open to Q&A. Can all of you hear? Dr. Sankaran, Director of Justice Case Study Institute of Management, is doing a lot of initiative for promoting entrepreneurship among students during the course of study. Do you want to add something, Dr. Sankaran? You have to unmute while asking question.
So Venkat, you want to take the question? There's a question saying that how do you start an incubation during COVID-19?
Okay. So it's all about digital, right? So I was making an earlier point about digital platforms. This is a fantastic opportunity. And sometimes you say about eat your own dog food. So if, for example, in this COVID environment, as Krishnan said, we may not be able to come up with the right vaccine, but there are clearly, it has opened up plenty of opportunities. So students can think about what other opportunities had opened up for this contactless digital future, and come up with ideas, and then use a digital platform to engage, discuss, collaborate, and mature their ideas into something meaningful. Absolutely, I'm more than happy to any such aspiring student to turn their idea into something meaningful.
Ganesh, on this side, I'll tell you, on the COVID side, I'm engaged with a number of medical startups, and the opportunity more than COVID obviously is an opportunity for at least for the next year or so. But one big thing that has changed globally is the approval process. If you need FDA approval in US, or if you need approval for certain equipment or some drug in India, the process is very much sort of shortcut. And that's a massive opportunity for our medical startups, which are there to take advantage of that.
Sure, sir. I mean, definitely there is an opportunity there, but as far as medical startups are concerned, if you look at even in India, regulations have not evolved. And traditionally, most of the medical startups per se tend to get the US FDA approval, though it is time consuming. And more so now with the COVID, it's taking even more time. But unfortunately, as far as the medical regulations as in India is concerned, particularly for startups, unfortunately, there is no clear stand as of now. And even if you go to the department, it's like more saying that we have no objection, but at the same time, they're not approving of what you're doing.
Approving, yeah.
So there is little bit of confusion. Maybe Vivek can add to it, but we are not helping the cause either.
But USA, we have gotten 2 or 3 approvals very, very quickly with a couple of companies that I'm engaged with. US FDA approval.
That said, there are non-clinical aspects in medicine. For example, teleradiology. You can get involved with the, let's say, assignment of the right radiologist for this X-ray versus that MRI and scanner. So these are non-clinical aspects, and today there's a tremendous amount of money wasted and inefficient. So one should be looking for in this new digital thing. You know, we are now talking about telemedicine 3.0. There are non-clinical aspects that one can think about, come up with a unique workflow method, for example, and communication between the diagnostic centers and the radiologists and so on and so forth, very domain specific. I'm just throwing it as an example saying, oh my God, this is going to take FDA approval. It's going to take a lot of money, but there are opportunities that the new COVID, post-COVID scenario environment has opened up across the board, whether it is in education or healthcare or supply chain, you name it.
So maybe Vivek, you can answer this question. Should we take patents before we start or later? So what's the right point in time to file for a patent?
Yeah, this is an excellent question. So if you have an IP, which is going to give you a differentiated value proposition for some time, 3 to 5 years, I think you should apply for patent as soon as possible. Point 1. Point 2, many startups come to me and they say they have material worth 12 patents or 20 patents, and they don't have money to file for that many patents. And my advice to them is that you don't need 20 patents for a startup. You need maybe whatever your budget permits, but maybe 2 or 3 or 1 even in your core area that actually is your core technology. One good patent in your core technology with lots of claims is much better than having 20 patents, which has a cost implication of its own. So Ganesh, to answer quickly, 1, you should apply as soon as possible because IP can help you build the company. And 2, stay in your core. Don't file patents that are not in your core area, at least in the early part, because you will have shortage of money and resources.
Thanks, thanks Vivek. Krishnan, there's I think a question for you on the biotechnology side. I think Professor Santosh, if I'm not mistaken, the question has moved on. Professor Santosh, can you just repeat the question for Krishnan?
Sure.
I think the question is how do, I don't know if Krishnan you saw the question.
No, I couldn't see.
So it's basically saying how do biotechnology companies be part of STAR? I don't know what after that, but I couldn't read the message. I think let me see if I can.
Hello, sir.
I think Dr. Santosh is there.
Yes, sir, Dr. Santosh, sir. It's regarding the scope of startups during this after post you can say COVID situation. Which are all the startups? They may have a lot of scope. I'm just asking. Other than vaccine, probably this is what it is happening. This COVID situation. So other than that,
So
in the biotech side, anything, sir?
Yeah, biotech, there are very good opportunities, right from food to energy, which is, for example, the biofuel area. Even in the
Yes, sir.
COVID space, I think one should look at reagents, for example, because you know that today
Okay.
almost all the reagents are being imported. So these are all
Yes, sir.
very
Yes.
big opportunities. Only thing is,
Exactly.
we should understand that unless there is a very good sort of collaboration, which again Dr. Achar emphasized, the industry, academia,
Yes,
these
sir.
things may not take out very well. And today, you know very well, the gestation period for the biotech space is far more longer than
Yes, sir. Yes.
the other innovation. Particularly, for a few colleges have come forward. Feel free to write, and we will give right guidance.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Achar,
Yes, good evening.
is there time for one comment?
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Please go
when
ahead,
you
sir.
said that earlier, my mute was on and there was no way to change it. Now I managed to have it on. One of the things that really troubles the Indian ecosystem is that the governance system in the academic area. And last 6 to 7 years, I've been researching in this area. And my colleague, Dr. Achar, and others on this panel, they know this. I was myself in management consulting for as long as 10 years. And I've seen the Indian industry move from one of license to a license Raj. Earlier, there used to be, the licensing and DGTD and so on. Some of the elderly people would know this. So currently, the Indian education system is what was industry prior to 1992. And the financing system in our country is extremely skewed towards supporting certain kinds of institutions in our country. And there is a tacit understanding in the regulatory system that the elitist institutions should remain in the government hands. This is what I understand. So what has come out as a national education policy of 2019 is an amazing document. That is about the only document I have seen from our country, including top research journals in education. I'm fundamentally, though I was in industry for as long as 10 years, I got into a deep kind of research. So I find that there's absolutely no work in our country on governance, except this NEP, which is an amazing document. A little wordy, it's a bit long, but then it has not come into action yet. So what I'm saying is, if you want to have an ecosystem, we must have entrepreneurial intellectuals. An entrepreneurial intellectual is a person who says, "Oh, is that my student? Wow, here's a great idea, and I want to support him." And oh, you proved me wrong. And I've been fortunate enough to go to some of the finest institutions in India as well as elsewhere, and I find that is missing in our country. So I think you're absolutely right when you say, and I'm not at all surprised because I see some amazing talent in rural areas in our country. We can, I mean, it's a very long discourse I can get into. I don't want to get into, but then, the city dwellers are influenced by, the babudam that happens in our country, while, the rural folks are still unspoiled and there is the freshness. So entrepreneurship requires a little bit of naivety and jumping into it because, your heart talks to you, and heart doesn't talk when our minds are colonized. So what I'm suggesting is that we need to really look at educational governance, and I can go into volumes of absolute what should I say, timidity and even stupidity that is really nurtured in our system. So those people who know what is industrial licensing and DGTD would know what was India before 1992. We need a liberation of that sort today, which for some political reason, I don't know what, I had an opportunity to be called by some of the very top people in our country, but there is some timidity that's happening in terms of letting the the steam out, so to say, if I may. So I think all of us, the whole society, has to take this into account, because as elders, as a parent, I'm very timid actually when it comes to questioning the system. But as a researcher, I'm not. But even as a teacher, I'm timid, because I don't know whether my students want it, because my students are also, they're comfortable with being told what to do. So if we have a system where teaching is content transmission and learning of assurance of learning is provided by exams that test memory. If you want to move to entrepreneurship, we have to have a teaching where you're teaching to be creative, where assurance of learning is asking questions and actually are contrarian. And that is the deep old Indian tradition. I mean, I want to lecture
Yes,
about this
yes, sir.
again.
That is the theme of the discussion today. That how
Yeah.
do you generate
Yeah.
creativity among the student,
Yeah.
do innovation, and
Yeah.
then
So
become
what we need to
entrepreneurs.
do is, I'll just finish this. Yeah, I think getting along. We need to look at governance, educational governance, and bring in freedoms at very, very local levels. And
Yes, sir.
we will have a price to pay, but that has to be ensured.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments. Let us take a few more questions. We're running out of time now. Any questions from audience?
So I think there are a lot of questions which they've been texting Dr. Achar.
Mhm.
I don't know who's going to take this question. What is the opportunity for faculty to start a startup?
Yes, the new trend now, all universities encourage
So one
student
of the
and faculty
reason,
to start
one of the
enterprise.
reason that in West, and I'll obviously all the gentlemen on the panel are well exposed to the West, and we are talking example of West because they've succeeded in what they're doing. So one of the reasons is that professors are actually allowed to monetize what they're doing, right? And again, it goes back to governance, what Dr. Shankaran was talking about. So today, obviously, the lecturers and professors, and if not the owners, even among the colleagues itself, there's an issue, right, in terms of bureaucracy, jealousy, whatnot. We have a lot of cultural issues going on that's aside, but you don't allow professors to monetize the idea that you come up with. And therefore, even if you do a lot of spend on research, you don't encourage professors to come out and monetize. Some of the institutions like, say, Indian Institute of Science and others are coming out of this and trying to do something. But we have definitely a restriction in that. But opportunities are just immense, right? Because just imagine the number of students that a professor goes through in terms of the incubation center, what kind of ideas go through, in terms of only people who are continuing in the institution of the professors. So definitely there's a lot of opportunities that come by, but I don't think so. Again, like students, governance doesn't encourage professors and lecturers to do what they should ideally be leading the way and showing the doors for the students. I'll ask others to comment on it. But
Yeah, Ganesh, I started my career as an academician. I taught at Lehigh University in Pennsylvania for a year and a half. So the beauty of entrepreneurship is you don't need a certificate to enter entrepreneurship field. You have to have an idea that you are very passionate about, and you are willing to work and make it work through perseverance and whatever it takes. And so for all academic people, I will say there is no reason why you cannot be a fantastic entrepreneur. Keep that in mind, and you will be able to, even if you, after doing the startup, you go back to your educational institution and teach, you will be a much better professor, and you will offer much better value to your students, especially on entrepreneurship, if you have done a startup yourself.
I have one.
And it's not necessarily a binary. Actually, you can have 1 foot continue with your academic thing and have 1 foot out in industry, which is pretty much a norm mostly in the West. I can think of, say, deep tech startups, for example, and they lack something, and you could faculty can consider participating in their advisory boards, for example. And there are such open opportunities where it could be not just startups, but also industry. And without giving up your tenure, without giving up your academic professional career, there are methods for you to engage, participate, and be part of the ecosystem.
But Venkat, I think way Ganesh said, it is still not encouraged in the Indian system.
Yeah.
That is the challenge. And this is where we probably, I think it's a very good idea to probably get it from the government and the institutions, at least the private institutions, can be encouraged to at least support this idea, because that is where, as Mr. Singh said, it will probably make the professors even more successful and more interested in promoting entrepreneurship. Absolutely. This is not happening in India today.
In one sentence, if there is one answer I could give, we have to give some credit to entrepreneurial activity by faculty in NIRF, NBA accreditation, NAC accreditation. If we just do that, that itself will go a long way in promoting entrepreneurship among faculty.
So this has already been raised, sir. And unfortunately, in India, from the time something starts, by the time it changes, it takes 7 to 8 years. And that's what we are used to in India, right? You start something, an idea today, like the way you said, you should give some credit for, say, entrepreneurship and rankings. They know the government is aware of it, but one step at a time in their own way of working, it will be another 7, 8 years. But hopefully it will come. Hopefully it will come. So a lot of questions. I'm not sure about the time.
Dr.
I think we need to.
Dr. Achar, I saw some questions on the chat. Let me answer one question.
Yes, sir.
There are potentially a lot of students who want to be an entrepreneur, and there are questions related to that. So let me just give you 6 steps on how you can take your entrepreneurship journey. Right. Number 1, I think you have to have an idea that you are passionate about. You cannot just pick an idea from someone else. You have to be very passionate about it. Once you have that idea, you do thorough competitive analysis of what solutions are available in the world today for that problem. Any PhD professor will tell you that the first section of their PhD thesis is about what is the state of the art. So academics can actually guide it very, very well how students should do that. But number 2 step is to know the competitive landscape. Number 3, once you know the competitive landscape, you need to create your own solution and make sure that solution gives you a sustainable, differentiated value proposition. Memorize these words if you are an entrepreneur. Sustainable, differentiated value proposition. I see 2 or 3 startups a week, and they are shortlisted startups. And I can tell you that even after shortlisting and so on, they cannot define this for me that easily. So number 3 is create sustainable, differentiated value proposition. And Ganesh, your question about the IP and all that flows right in there. Number 4 step is create a business model on how this idea will actually become a business. 5th step is to have this business plan, which captures all your journey from idea to business. That is what will help you raise money, and VCs are interested in only that. And the last point is commit 5 to 10 years. A startup is not a 1 year, 2 year game. You may be lucky and 5 years may be good enough, but commit 5 to 10 years and be in your mind that I'm not going to give up. I'll go all the way. If you follow these 5-6 steps, I think any student, any reasonably intelligent student, they don't have to be on the top of the class. They don't have to come from the top institution. If you have these 5-6 steps and you have the qualities of basic entrepreneurs, you can make it very, very successful startup.
Yeah. Are we running out of time? Shall we take a few more questions and conclude, or Ganesh Rajan, sir?
I'll leave it to you. There are a lot of questions. Something on, maybe I'll let Krishnan answer this question. Krishnan, on in agriculture sector, do you see any opportunity coming up now, since you are passionate about agriculture as well?
Absolutely, Ganesh. Actually, the microbes can play a very, very important role. And this is one area when people should look at biostimulants. People should also look, how do we the soil, whether in the farmers.
It's hard to hear, Mr. Krishnan.
These are where one can look at it. Cultivation, what crop it is. Can you hear me?
Some audio issue there.
Not so good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes,
Krishnan.
sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, it's all right
yes.
now. Yeah, now we can hear you.
Hello,
Yes, Krishna, we can hear you.
you can hear me.
Yeah.
We lost him
No,
again.
I'm
His network is
saying that
fluctuating.
the
His network is fluctuating.
segment.
Yeah,
While
some
he-
network
why-
issue.
why-
So Ganesh, I can take this
fact,
on
Yeah, while he
agriculture.
joins, I can also
Yeah.
take a stab, but looks
Sure.
like he can join. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Mr. Krishnan.
Go ahead, Krishnan.
no,
Okay.
what I meant is in the
Some audio issues.
segment, especially when we are income.
Yeah, Mr. Krishnan, your line is getting.
Okay.
I think it's a problem with this network.
Yeah.
So Vivek, you want to take that question, right?
Yeah, I very different answer. I think Mr. Krishnan's answer was more on the biotechnology and from that side, which is would be great for our entrepreneurs to know. My side is purely from technology side. So there are a lot of solutions that are coming in agriculture field from IoT point of view, Internet of Things, from artificial intelligence point of view. Number of startups I have seen. So I will encourage students to look into agriculture startup. The good part is the market for agriculture products in India is massive if you have the right product. So you don't even have to look for markets outside. And so I'll encourage our entrepreneurs to look into agriculture.
And I'll add a third dimension to agriculture here based on government policies. So the government announced like farmers can go market anywhere in the country. So there is a notion of a marketplace here. There is a notion of supply chain, cold storage. So across the board, whether it is based on technology, on IoT and drones and artificial intelligence, but also government policies are going to be opening up so many opportunities for entrepreneurs to go and take the opportunity.
Mr. Krishnan, if you turn your video off and just have your audio, maybe you will have a better chance of coming across.
Yeah. Can
Okay.
you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. No, what I was trying to say is, especially I was looking from the biotech angle. And today the challenges related to rain or shine, the farmers ultimately are suffering. This is where biotechnology could play a critical role, especially microbes, both in the area from the seed treatment level to the cultivation, to yield increase, enhancing the soil's overall fertility. There is very good opportunity. And this is one area where the students could pay attention to, where it is very good entrepreneurial opportunity there.
So guys, opportunities everywhere.
Yes, shall we conclude now?
Yes,
please.
Doctor. I
I'll
think
take
we
all
have
the
already
questions
exceeded
and
by 20 minutes.
we will take all the questions and give it because it's all we have all the participants address and email ID. We'll take questions offline and send to them whatever from the panel answer to them. I think the last part is the concluding remarks by Ullas Kamath. He had played the role of a Madhyastha, brought industry and academia together. And even though he's in industry for a long time, he is closely working with academia also. And I request Ullas Kamath to make a concluding remarks and note of thanks.
Yeah. Everything, most of the questions we have answered. Follow-up questions can always take on the offline. And I thank the wonderful panelists on board, and they are very, very enthusiastic. And I wish Nikkei Incubation Center, especially Dr. Achar, all the best for you. Any support from our side, we are always there. Industry has to work together. For me, existing entrepreneur, new entrepreneur, and let's try to see what best we can do and have some numbers to our target that at least 100 entrepreneurs you create in the next 1 or 2 or 3 years. Put some numbers. That's where it makes a lot of difference. Then because we are for us quarterly, it is very important. So similarly, you should have some target to have a number of entrepreneurs, and we'll do whatever is required from our side. We are always, and now with the new technology, we can always join whenever you want, weekly, monthly reviews. We can have it, and I'm more than happy to help to achieve your dreams. Luck to you and entire team and all the participants. Any follow-up question always there, and reach us through Dr. Achar. Thank you, everyone, and look forward to meet you all once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It was
Thank you,
a
Dr. Achar.
Thank you.
honor,
Thank you.
privilege to have you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank to Praveen Udupa for technically helping us to host this program.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Praveen Udupa.
Thank you.